Как тебя зовут и кто тебя послал?
Меня зовут Kraven.
Крейвен.
Каждый сказки есть правда.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Kraven time. Sony has released the first 8 minutes of the Kraven movie. Normally, that would seem like a totally desperate move on their part. I think they're hoping people would see the opening scene and the first minor action scene here, thinking it would get people hyped up more because they really want this movie to feel like John Wick, but with Spider-Man characters. I do not think the ticket sales are going that great. But even if the movie isn't as good as, say, like the Venom movies or the Spider-Verse movies or even any of the Spider-Man movies, I don't think we're expecting it to be as good as the Spider-Man movies. It seems like it'll at least be enjoyable to watch as opposed to something like Morbius or Madam Web. So like we are slowly moving up from the Madam Web level of the Sony Spider-Man Venom universe. I know there's a bunch of questions about what's going on with the future of the Sony Marvel universe, like the Venom universe. They have changed their plans behind the scenes, and a lot of it has to do with Noel God of symbiotes. It's part of this big pivot that they're doing. Marvel's also doing their own version of a soft reboot with Secret Wars. Pretty much everybody's doing that with their comic book universes right now. Even James Gunn over in the DC universe rebooting that universe. I guess we've just gotten to that point in all the different comic book universes. If you're brand new to the channel, of course I'll be doing videos for everything. I'll post my review of the movie next week as soon as they let us. But if you haven't seen it, and judging by the views, most people have not seen it, Sony released the entire opening scene of the Kraven movie. It's a weird thing for them to do, but they've actually done this many times in the past. Most people just forget. They did it for the Venom movies, they did it for the Spider-Verse movies, Into the Spider-Verse, Across the Spider-Verse, so it's not unheard of for them to do this for Spider-Man related movies. HBO even does this with a lot of their TV episodes, like it posted the entire first episode of House of the Dragon on YouTube for a little while after it first came out. It totally got age-locked because of all the TNA, because YouTube does not like all the titties and dragons, but you get the idea. They still tried. You'd think this was like 2008, like what, people posted entire movies, entire TV episodes on YouTube? What's going on? I remember back in the day, there was a large portion of the world that would just watch their TV on YouTube waiting for the pirate versions to upload episode to episode. But the actual scene here shows Kraven in the middle of his hunt going around killing the Venom Marvel Universe. The movie isn't meant to be a direct adaptation of Kraven's Last Hunt because obviously Spider-Man isn't supposed to be in this movie. You can't do Kraven's Last Hunt without Spider-Man. That's the whole point of Kraven's Last Hunt, that he hunts and defeats Spider-Man finally. But they are trying to do a combination of his origin story in the Spider-Man comics, weirdly mixed with Catman's origin story at DC. If you haven't read Catman's origin, it's basically what they've shown you in all the trailers for the Kraven movie. Like, wait a minute, this is a DC thing. Are they just ripping off Catman's story? But according to Taylor Johnson, they are building up to Kraven's Last Hunt, where at the end of this movie, he becomes a full villain and will eventually go on to Kraven's Last Hunt. So the idea when he signed on to play the character is that he would eventually be hunting Spider-Man at some point. He didn't say which version of Spider-Man, but I think the idea is that Sony wants that to be Tom Holland's Spider-Man. We will see. We will see if that winds up working out. I'm sure Kevin Feige will have a couple things to say about that. You can always tell with all the Venom movies, because there's way more actual Spider-Man crossover, that at some point, Kevin Feige and the Marvel people are like, okay, pump the brakes here. We will do Venom crossover when we're ready for Venom crossover. One of the other big reasons I think they released this entire opening scene is they want to show you how different the vibe is from the Venom movies, in that at the end of this movie, Taylor Johnson's Kraven is meant to go full villain, like he goes way darker, as opposed to Tom Hardy's Venom character, who's more of like a lighter comedic anti-hero character, even becoming full good, like actually good character by the end of Venom: The Last Dance. This is also the reason why Kraven is rated R and the Venom movies were not rated R, because they never intended to take the Venom character as dark as he gets in the comics. But I think the idea with Kraven here is that he's meant to start out as more of a good character, hunting, killing all the worst people in the Venom universe, starting with the men who work for his father, who is meant to be one of the big villains of the film next to the Rhino. The way they're playing his father too, played by Russell Crowe, Zeus, also inside the Sony Venom universe, Russell Crowe just showing up all over the MCU. The Kravinoff family in the comics come from Russian aristocracy. In the movie, it seems that they're portraying him as more of like a very powerful Russian mob leader. Most of the movie is meant to take place in and around Eastern to Western Europe, just like that part of the world, as opposed to the United States, for example. This is why during the opening scene, we're talking about Russian mob-related stuff, he infiltrates the Siberian prison to specifically kill the Russian mobster Kirov. The Kirov character is also a super deep cut from the Marvel Hulk comics too, so we're talking about more MCU Marvel references here. Kirov Petrovna was the Devastator in the Hulk comics. He was a Russian spy who infiltrated Thunderbolt Ross's Hulkbuster base. Hulk eventually defeats him after his Devastator power suit backfired. And no, this wasn't Thunderbolt Ross's version of a Hulkbuster armor like Iron Man Hulkbuster armor. Thunderbolt Ross is the person who coined the term Hulkbusters, and it's what he called his Spec Ops team specifically designed for capturing the Hulk. Iron Man later took the name when he created his Hulkbuster armor for fighting the Hulk. So when most people think of Hulkbuster, they think of the Hulkbuster armor, but originally Thunderbolt Ross came up with the name. Some of the comedy here feels like they're trying to go with the vibe of the comedy in the John Wick movies too. Like the whole movie feels like a John Wick kind of movie. Very dry, like he's not trying to actually be funny, like it's just very tongue-in-cheek. This whole scene with his roommate joking that he's going to let him try to kill him if he stays longer than a couple days because he's planning to kill Kirov by tomorrow, then refuses to let him sit next to him at lunch. Little bit hammy, but I don't mind it just because this is them speed running to get to the action scenes, which a lot of the John Wick movies do too. Like they have their own version of humor, but a lot of the humor in that movie is born from comedic situations that the character runs into. Like something crazy happens in the middle of a fight and they use that to create the comedy of the scene. This whole scene in the prison yard taking out Kirov's men is also way over the top. It feels like it goes on just like a little too long, but they're using the scene to give you a tutorial in his super soldier level powers. Remember, this movie is changing his origin story and giving him a version of a spider bite origin where like a lion bites him and then he gets a special serum that changes his DNA and gives him super soldier level powers. But it's meant to be a lot of Spider-Man energy like organic animal-based super soldier level powers. If you haven't seen any of the animated versions of Kraven, he's not meant to be as strong as Spider-Man, but he's still way stronger than a normal human. So the whole idea here, though, is that he's baiting Kirov's men to attack him so that it will get him closer to Kirov, hoping that they'll ask Kirov to kill him, and that will get him the meeting. He doesn't care about anybody else at the prison here, he's just trying to get close to Kirov and using these men to do that. When they finally get to the actual action scene, which is like the whole money shot of this opening scene, like that's the whole point of this opening scene is to get you to that money shot where he just takes out all these people in this room. The actual action, the fight scene itself, seems pretty decent compared to Morbius, Madam Web action scenes. Doesn't rely on nearly as much CG or special effects as the Venom action scenes with all the symbiotes. Like they really want it to feel like a much more grounded John Wick kind of action movie. We will see how successful the rest of the movie is at doing this. Like, there's not too many cuts here, but we know there's going to be a huge CG battle with the Rhino at the end of the movie, so we'll see how that winds up playing out. I think at some point they changed some of the ending of the movie and they added a bunch of the extra Rhino stuff that was not in the original version. Aaron Taylor Johnson himself is actually a pretty decent actor. I believe that he's actually up for being the next Bond. Like, there's a good chance that he could become the next Bond. And Sony is probably just waiting to see what's going to happen with this Kraven movie. Like, if it does really well and they actually want to do more sequels, then he probably won't be Bond. But the Bond people are also probably like, let's just wait and see how this movie does. And if it does really bad, then he also will not be the next Bond. It could go either way. I think Sony and Marvel are also kind of waiting to see how the movie does, to see the future of this character. If it does do well, you will see Kraven crossover with the larger Null God of Symbiotes storyline, all the Venom stuff they're doing in the future. I've already done a Venom 4 video. Like, they are definitely continuing with the Venom line of movies. It's just that Tom Hardy's Venom is taking a little bit of a break right now, at least until Secret Wars. But if it wasn't clear, Kraven is meant to be taking place on the same Earth. All the different Sony Spider-Man spin-off movies are meant to take place on the same Earth. The reason why you didn't see a ton of other references to the other movies in Madam Web, for instance, is because they pulled them out at the last minute. They probably saw how that movie was doing. They're like, this is going to be a stinker. Let's just try and push this off by itself so people forget that it actually exists when they go to see the other movies. If we're getting real with the Kraven movie, just based on all the footage, the way people are talking about it seems like the movie will be at least okay, like a fine movie. It'll be better than Madam Web and Morbius, which I feel like is a good step up for Sony. Like, at least you're doing better than some of your worst so far. but probably not as enjoyable as, say, like the Venom movies or as peak as the Spider-Verse movies, which I still feel like are the peak of anything that Sony has done recently outside of like the main Spider-Man movies, which it does with Marvel inside the MCU with Tom Holland. Most of the places where Sony has really gotten itself into trouble is this recent crop of the B, C, and D-list villain movies and spin-off movies that they've been trying to make work without actually doing Spider-Man. Like, can we do Spider-Man without actually having a Spider-Man? Turns out, no, you actually do need a Spider-Man at a certain point. Which is why a big part of their plan going forward, pivoting, is more towards live-action Miles Morales and null God of Symbiotes. But the live-action Miles Morales stuff hasn't happened yet because they're waiting till after Beyond the Spider-Verse comes out and animated Spider-Verse Miles Morales is done with his story in those movies. But I'm supposed to see the movie early next week. I'll post a review as soon as I'm allowed to do that, so look out for that video. Good or bad, we will find out. There's a bunch of big Spider-Man stuff happening in the next couple months. We're going to get episodes of that new MCU Spider-Man TV series in January. I'll be doing videos for that too. I've already done a full trailer video for it as well. Click here for that. And everyone click here to learn what's going on with Venom 4. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.